Hello, everyone. I really hope that everyone is in great health and great spirit. Uh, we really appreciate that you let us be part of this important event. We are Lenin Oviedo Correa, María Alejandra Esteves, and Luis Bermúdez Villapol. We are presenting today the topic related with citation conservation priority in areas of high environmental impacts, facing the worst case scenario in the Venezuelan seascape. Together, we are part of Plataformar, which is an institution dedicated to the outreach of marine science. Venezuela is part of the mega diverse countries, together with all the others mega diverse countries of the Americas. We hold 16% of all the biological richness of the planet. The Venezuelan exclusive economic zone is a major portion of the Southeast Caribbean, and within this important marine ecosystem, we have close to 22 species of odontocetaceans and around 4 species of mysticetes. Within this cetacean fauna, we also have coastal populations that are very exposed to all the anthropogenic effects and events that we cause around the coastlines. What you see over here is one of the most updated distribution map prediction of the distribution of Guyana dolphins in Venezuela. As you can see, the gray squares is the locations that are the result of this prediction, whereas the black square that you see along the map are the ones that has been already documented by science and already published. Venezuela is an oil-producing country, and unfortunately, everybody knows that this situation, this social and economical situation, has caused one of the major immigration movement in the planet. Around 5 million Venezuelans have left the country seeking for a better life, seeking to not only survive but to make a living. And as you can see over here, that is related with a downward trend of our gross domestic product. That downward trend is in synergy with the current politic of the country, and is also related with the downward trend of the oil production. But another outcome of that is that the oil spills and filtration are having an upward trend that is completely opposed to the decreasing oil production. What this means is that political changes and all the political situation in Venezuela have caused the loss of professional values in the oil industry, and with that loss of professional value also loss of professional values also goes along with a complete lack of investment, and the result of that is that all the facilities are now being rusted and outdated, and of course that have important consequences for the environment. This trend continues to impact the country's seascape. This is a very actual event. It happens in last July. As you can see in the satellite image that we have in the screen, on the 19th of July at 10:40, you have a completely clean intersection of El Palito refinery in the west coast of Venezuela. Whereas on the 22nd of the same month, you can see the extension of a major oil spill. An oil spill that is affecting a biological rich coastline in Venezuela. That oil spill is impacting negatively local population of coastal dolphin and marine megafauna, even before we are able to collect knowledge on their biology and ecology. As you can see in the map, there are important evidences of a stranding of spotted dolphins. Those evidence let us know that we have in the surrounding seascape the presence of a population that we probably share with other islands in the Caribbean, particularly with Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire. Also, and I need to emphasize this, in the map we also have evidences of population of coastal dolphins such as the Guyana dolphin. This sighting was actually collected through social media. The oil spill, again, is really having a very detrimental effect on an area that is close to a national park, and it was close to a national park because, again, it's a biological rich coastline. Oil spills and filtration is very common to those oil producing facilities that are rusted and outdated. What you see over here in the video is a group of Guyana dolphins swimming within an oil-covered waters of the Maracaibo Lake. In the Maracaibo Lake is where you can find in Venezuela the oldest facility for oil extraction and oil production and refinery. This is really sad. As you can see, it's a family group over here. At some point in the stream left, you will see evidence of females with calf. You will see a female and calf. Again, swimming through this oily soup that of course, it has important consequences for their local health. But the main problem over here, besides the fact that these filtration are absolutely destroying the coastal habitats and the marine habitat of the Maracaibo Lake, is the fact that due to the current economical situation and the social situation, we haven't been able to continue with our science work and collect important data to actually have a baseline of demography and reproductive parameters that will allow us to compare and to monitor the effects of these kind of events on the reproductive success and population growth of these dolphins. It's so dangerous to do field work right now in Venezuela. As a matter of fact, I had a project with the same species in the eastern coast of Venezuela that was started in 2007. By 2010, unfortunately, I was forced to close the project because the logistic constraints were really difficult to follow, and on top of that, it was absolutely dangerous to continue with this kind of field work. We know that the exposure of dolphins to petroleum compounds have important consequences in terms of adrenal and lung diseases. And for instance, in the oil spill of 2010 with the Deepwater Horizon, that was considered an important contribution for the increase of dolphin deaths in the Gulf of Mexico. So that impacted the survival rate of these dolphins. It was considered very low, 0.73, and it was consistent with a large-scale cetacean unusual mortality. But to be able to draw this kind of conclusion and to be able to actually obtain and compare this kind of output with the environmental conditions and with all the variables that are implied, you need to have a strong knowledge base on demography and biological parameters to be able to actually monitor and draw this kind of conclusions. In Venezuela, our baseline is really scant, and it have a reason for. The knowledge that has been produced, that has been created, has been produced by the civil society, not by the academia. I can I can give you an example. When I started working with marine mammals, with cetaceans in the 90s, in the late 90s, I did my thesis on the distribution and ecology of bottlenose dolphin in the eastern coast of Margarita Island. I didn't have any kind of institutional support, okay? And of course, I didn't have any particular budget that will ease the development of my research. I was I needed to be creative, and among other colleagues, we created our own institution to be able to carry on with our studies and research. And of course, the kind of resources that the civil society have to invest in producing knowledge is very, very low compared with what is supposed to be invested by academic institution and by government institution as well. So the consequence is that it's not possible to measure all these effects that are related with the demography and reproductive success of coastal cetaceans that are particularly exposed to everything that we do to our coastal seascape. Our anthropogenic effects are severely damaging their biological and ecological profile, but unfortunately, at this very moment, we are in the very worst scenario. We're losing wildlife without prior knowledge of what are the main characteristics of this species. I need to clarify one important thing. I am marine biologist. I do research with marine mammals and with cetaceans in particular. I have no particular political affiliation, and my intention is not to debate the current ideology that is governing my country, but the facts are that our oil industry at some point had very high standard, and those high standards have been lost because we are currently living on a failed state. It's not that we don't have any kind of contingency plans and contingency measures when these kind of events happen. We do have them. There is a whole plan to prevent and to actually treat these kind of events in the oil industry of Venezuela. At least there was plans for that when the oil industry was with professionals that provided that kind of standards to it. Right now, what we have is a political situation that is not really trying to solve the problem, but is trying to actually hide the problem and just trying to put some blind spot in a way that nothing is criticized and that the population is not aware of what is happening at this very moment. I can only stress the importance that we invest in creating knowledge and creating and producing outputs that will guide us in decision makings. We need to create a strong knowledge base to inform management and conservation, and that is a reality in all over Latin America. It's a particular reality in Venezuela. We are supposed to have the resources to do that, but even before this, unfortunately, disaster started, the truth is that it hasn't been given the place that it deserves. We appreciate all the attention that you have given us today, and we'll be very happy to answer all your questions. Thank you.